Hello, welcome if you've just joined us in this moment. It's great to see you. Thanks for being here. Just a little reminder, if you could turn your cameras and your microphones off and leave them off, that would be wonderful. The reason for that is there are going to be a lot of us, so it makes much more sense and it just runs more smoothly if you keep your cameras and microphones off. If you want to introduce yourself in the chat function, though, that would be lovely. Feel free to use that as much as you like. So say hello to everybody else, even though you're not able to see them at the moment. Just say hi, be the first person, say who you are, where you're from, and say hello while we wait for other people to join us. And if you're not sure where the chat function is, it's at the bottom of your screen. Zoom's very pretty to look at, so it hides a lot of things until you move near them. So if you just move your mouse towards the bottom of your screen, your chat function will appear. You can say hello, tell us where you're from, tell us what you do. There we go. So we've got Sandra carrying Caroline. There we go. We've got people saying hi. That's good. Hi, Jeremy. Good to see you. That's good to see someone in the chat there saying that this is the third one of these webinars they've done. So that's a testament to the fact that they've been useful to people. If you're coming back for more, thank you so much for doing it. Also, just to remind you as well that we are recording this today, and the reason that we're doing it is so that others who couldn't make it can watch it later, because we're going to put them all on our website, the whole series. You'll see, keeping an eye on the chat as well, that Holly's put information there about how today will run, but I'll talk through that once a few more of us have joined as well, and we'll just give them 5 minutes for people to get into the room and work out what they need to do. I hope everyone's got a brew with them. That's good. Brilliant. See lots of people saying hi in the chat there. All sorts kinds of people coming from all different art forms, organisations big and small, lots of freelancers. Great to have you with us. Thanks for being here. And I like you using the chat because it gets over the weird of no one responding when I'm talking. So please do use it. The clue's in the title. It's a chat function. Go for it. Great. Okay, so we're just about on 5 past. We're going to get started. People might continue to join us, so you might want to keep that chat function open so you can see who else is joining along with us. So welcome, thank you for being here. So I'm Kelly, I'm from Curious Minds, as it seems quite obvious from the slide. Also on the side here, you'll be able to see we've got Hannah Lambert. Give us a wave, Hannah. This is the wonderful Hannah, who also will help. If anyone has any tech issues, Hannah's there. Just shout up in the chat and she'll help as much as we can to try and make sure that it goes as smoothly as possible. And we've got Holly Ball, also from Curious Minds, and then we also have Dan, who I'll introduce in a little bit more thoroughly. So we're gonna, most of us will keep our cameras on so that you know you're not alone. So yeah, but do shout up if you need any help in the chat. We're all kind of keeping an eye on that. So although we can't hear your actual voices, we can see what you're writing. So just quickly to say, there are people here who know Curious Minds very well. There are people here who are kind of encountering us for the first time. So very, very briefly, Curious Minds exists to make sure that children and young people have access to good quality arts and culture. We're all about that, so please have a look at our website, find out a little bit more about what we do if you don't know us well. We care hugely about young people having access, but also about the power of arts and culture for young people to tackle social justice issues. we don't do direct work very much with children and young people. Actually, we're a sector support organisation, and we take that phrase more seriously than we ever have done right now, because we know that our sector is struggling in lots of different ways, and that's hence one of the reasons for doing this webinar. We work with schools, we work with youth services, we work with arts and culture organisations, we work with local authorities. We bring people together a lot of the time and kind of do the sector level support and strategic level support in terms of training, leadership programmes, webinars, live events when we can, and that kind of thing. And we're feeling also more determined than ever to support freelancers. We're very aware how much of a huge volume of the work that is delivered to children and young people in whatever setting is delivered by freelancers. So we really want to help support that workforce. And this webinar, as some of people are saying in the chat, you know, is part of a series. One of the things we realised when the coronavirus crisis hit was that freelancers and small organisations were vulnerable, and we very quickly set about creating a bursary programme to help people to acquire the skills they're going to need to weather this storm. And it's really from that feedback and those conversations we've been having with people that we realised there were particular things a lot of people needed, and marketing is one of those things. We're very lucky that some people put their hands up to say, I can help out with that. And Dan, who I'll introduce properly in a bit, is one of those people who is willing to say, I'm willing to share my skills with the sector. You know, we're pulling together, let's help each other out as much as we can. So that's kind of where today's come from. If you've been to anything that Curious Minds does live, you'll know that our usual and preferred format involves a lot of flip chart and excessive use of post-its. So this is unusual for us as well, to have, you know, a format where it's harder for you guys to respond, but so, you know, this felt like the simplest way to make it happen, and also to allow quite a lot of people to join. So apologize, you know, my apologies for muting you, but please do use that chat as liberally as you want to. This is the way that we found that it works smoothly to have a lot of people involved. So that's why we're doing it. So what's going to happen in a bit, I'm going to introduce Dan. Dan will do a presentation and impart probably a small fraction of his wisdom via that presentation, I would imagine, and then we'll wait to the end to do questions, but please do bung your questions in the chat as soon as you think of them, and we will harvest them. So there'll be 15 minutes for questions at the end. Just put them in as soon as you think of them. You know, also feel free to use it to kind of comment and shout up, but we won't address the questions until the end, just to make life easy for Dan. We probably won't get round or through all the questions, I imagine, but we'll try to pick out the ones that kind of are recurring or on a theme. And we can follow up after today if there are still questions that you have. You know, you can get in contact with us. So we'll get through as many as we can in the time that we've got, but we will definitely keep it to an hour, because I think that's plenty for anyone in terms of Zoom. So that's how it's going to work. If there's anything else you need to know, give us a shout in the chat box. I don't think there's anything else I need to say right now, so I'm going to introduce Dan. So this is Dan Jarvis.
Hello.
When Dan is not volunteering as a furloughed person to help out other colleagues, he works for the Lowry. He's marketing manager at the Lowry, and also has 10 years worth of experience in marketing that he's going to share some of that with us today. So thank you so much, Dan, for being willing to do this as a volunteer. I really appreciate it. So by way of getting a sense of what you normally do, what would a typical day be like for you, Dan, if you weren't at home?
So I guess a typical day at the Lowry involves 2/3 working on promoting specific shows or exhibitions we have coming up, and coming up with marketing campaigns and strategies to try and get as many people to come and engage with those as possible. And probably 1/3 looking at more strategic stuff such as audience development. How do we diversify our audience? Looking at budgets and stuff like that. I think the main thing is at the Lowry especially, no 2 days look the same. One day might be really budget heavy, all about email strategy. Another day might be packing sweet bags with Nigel Slater, or helping a comedian find her missing potato cakes is something that happened once. It's a really fun and varied job.
Brilliant. I'm sure if we were all able to chat, then everybody would, you know, a great icebreaker would be, what's the most bizarre task you've ended up doing that's so far away from the role that you're employed to do? But I'm sure we could all answer that one beautifully, maybe at another time. Okay, Dan, I'm going to step out of your way and mute my mic and let you crack on. Thank you so much.
Okay, just give me a second to get the share screen up. Okay, hopefully everyone should be able to see my screen now. Give us a thumbs up if you can. Perfect. I shall get started. Who am I? I'm Dan Jarvis, as has been pointed out. I am marketing manager at Valari, so I, in particular, have a focus on their artistic program and their galleries, as well as working in other areas such as artist development, audience development, and supporting the environmental and sustainability strategies at Valari, as well as anything else I can get involved in, really. On top of that, I actually have a second job, which is a co-artistic director of my own theatre company, Green Carnation Company. We produce LGBTQ theatre performances and digital projects. And before I worked at Valari, I was marketing and sales coordinator at Centre for Chinese Contemporary Art. Before that, quite a varied career, but I've been comms officer for Z Arts, a children and young people's charity in Manchester, and I've delivered a few projects with Heritage Lottery Fund and Museums Association. So quite a broad span across the culture spectrum. What are we here to do today? My aim in the next 40 minutes is to talk through the fundamentals of marketing and to try and do this as a real person, not a scary marketing android, because they do exist. They all gather together at a conference every year, the Arts Marketing Conference. But I want to sort of strip away a lot of the jargon and try and talk through the processes of creating a marketing strategy that everyone can understand. If you have any questions after my presentation, I've put my contact details on the presentation, and the presentation will be shared with everyone via Curious Minds as well. I will be moving at quite a pace because there's quite a lot I want to get through. So if you feel, oh, I've not got enough time to make enough notes, don't worry, the notes will be shared with you as well. Also, I'm going to apologize, I'm not going to be looking at the screen much, mainly because I'm doing a dual screen scenario here. So I'm going to be looking at my script over here. So, as I say, this is an introductory session into how to begin to approach marketing as a business and how to think strategically rather than being reactive. It's going to be fast-paced, but as I said, there's a PowerPoint to hopefully explain my process, and I'll also have a case study to sort of illustrate each step of the strategy. What this isn't is it's not a toolkit on how to use social media advertising or how to optimize search engines or how to produce the best print. Although the answer for that is probably don't produce print. It's a dying industry. We will briefly touch on these things, and I may signpost where you can find out more, but to be honest, there are better people who can talk about those specialisms. So, marketing strategy. Through my job, both at Valari and Green Carnation, I regularly work with artists of all scales to promote their work, whether it's performance, exhibitions, or learning engagement projects. And there are two things I've noticed. One is that people are scared of marketing. They put it in the drawer, they lock the drawer, they throw away the key, then they throw away the drawer, then they deny there ever was a chest of drawer because they've got other priorities. Then a week before their product, they'll go furniture hunting for the drawer they threw away. Hopefully I'm going to try and make marketing seem a little bit less scary and more like a simple, logical thought process. The other thing I've noticed is that people sometimes don't quite trust marketing. So something I've observed from working with a lot of artists, ranging from the emerging to the established, is a mistrust that marketing can sometimes twist words or devalue intention. And I just promise you that is not ever what we're trying to do. Our job as marketeers is to talk to different people in a way that those people will understand best. A good way of imagining it, I think, is say you're at a family wedding and you're a week after the family wedding, you've got your first performance of a contemporary dance piece that's inspired by Shabana Jaya Singh contemporary dance and is a fusion of Bharatanatyam dance with contemporary dance. And you really want your second cousin who has never worked or really actively engaged in the arts to come along. You wouldn't tell your second cousin all those facts because they'll probably zone out and text their friends for help under the table. Instead, you'd go, oh, it'd be really great to see family there. That would mean so much. And at its core idea, that is marketing. You've changed how you speak to someone so you appeal to what motivates them. And that is going to be what I'm going to keep coming back to during this presentation, is always have who you're speaking to in mind. So hopefully this webinar will make marketing seem a little less intimidating, a little more logical, and a little more trustworthy. The other thing just to flag is one of my biggest pet hates is jargon and navel gazing. And both marketeers and artists are some of the worst culprits for this. But we can't help absorb the culture we're surrounded in. So if you do find that I'm just throwing a lot of buzzwords, please do flag in the chat. And Holly, Hannah or Kelly will say, whoa, can you just back up? You're talking another language. But I will try my best not to do that. So next slide. What is marketing? Firstly, it's more than posters. The amount of people that, even in the Lowry, just assume that marketing is sorting out posters and flyers. It's so much more than that. So let's look at some definitions. Definition 1, marketing is the activity, set of institutions and processes for creating, communicating, delivering and exchanging offerings that have value for customers, clients, partners and society at large. Thank you, American Marketing Association. Second definition, at its basic level, arts marketing is a systemized process of creating awareness and interest for an artist or artwork that leads to a desire to engage the artist, gallery or company to own its products, use its services or all of the above. Businesses large and small use marketing to communicate their offerings, promote their brands, identify new prospects and strengthen bonds with existing customers. Thank you, Arts Marketing News. Now, both of those are absolutely spot on, but for me, they're a little bit business speak jargon heavy and I get bored reading them. So here's my definition of what marketing is. Marketing is how you tell people what it is you have to offer and how you prove that your offer is going to benefit them, either by fulfilling a need or by solving a problem. And that's from my brain. Just to cover a few of the wider things, what about communications and brand? Are they marketing? Yes and no. Honestly, it all depends on the size and scale of your organization. Freelancers and small companies will often have to be all three of these things at the same time, whilst large organizations like the Lowry may well have separate departments that look after these. However, for every business, all three of these are essential. So I've tried to just give some definitions to help you understand the difference between the three. So brand, that is your reason for being. It's your core value. This should be embedded in everything you do. And it's not just a marketing comms activity. It's not just logo. Logo is a tiny part of brand. It should be your rationale, your reason for being. And it should be your starting point for any business activity you do. Comms and communication, this is how you talk about yourself and how do you talk to others. And then finally, marketing is how you promote the right offer to the right people to help them get to with the goal that it will help them engage with your product and then hopefully buy it. A brief Venn diagram there, which I would recommend when the presentation is shared coming back to, but just showing you some of the different areas of work that might fall under brand, comms, or marketing. So marketing encompasses artwork and design, direct marketing, so sending out emails or physically mailing out to people, advertising, social media ads, customer data, audience development, pricing, but also all falls under marketing. Whereas comms is more your tone of voice, your press and publicity, your advocacy, and your business networks. And then there's bits that no one can ever decide what it falls into, such as website, social media, logos, profile raising events, which sort of sit weirdly in the middle and quite often end up a fight between departments or collaboration between them. Today, I am mainly going to be looking at marketing rather than communications or brand. But if you are a one-person band, I would strongly recommend looking into those areas as well and seeing what resources there are to understand them too. So, do you need to be a marketing expert to be successful in your business? Absolutely not. Marketing can be this super complicated, sophisticated, specialist knowledge industry that is $1 billion and operates in a global marketplace. But marketing can also just be done at home with a brew and a laptop, using a foundation of skills such as time planning, clear communication, empathy, budgeting, and conversation. Just because you're a one-person band doesn't mean you can't do marketing, or does it mean that to be successful you need to throw loads of money at marketing activity or bringing a specialist on board. It is something you can do in-house. It all depends on the size, capacity, and scale of your business and what you want it to achieve. The most important thing, which, as I said, I'll keep coming back to, is you need to think from the perspective of your customers. And that can quite often feel strange, especially when you're the artist creating your own work. Your motivation for creating work might be quite different from a customer's need to engage with your work. So here we go. I'm going to be sharing with you a step-by-step guide to guarantee success. Disclaimer, this will not guarantee success, but it will hopefully give you a roadmap so you can prioritize resources, planning, and be as efficient as possible. So let's go. The 8 steps, which I will break down in more detail through the course of this presentation, are: step 1, what is your USP? That is your unique selling point. What makes your business stand out? Who are your target audiences? What are your goals? What are you hoping to achieve with your marketing? What are your target audience's needs, and how can you and your business meet them? What tools can you use to reach your target audience? And how can you attract your target audience's attention? What's your time frame? And then finally, is it working? Is any of what we've been doing working? So let's start with step 1. What is your USP? So USP is an acronym. I hate acronyms. It stands for unique selling point. It is, what do you offer and what makes you stand out from a crowd? Quite often this sits along with your brand. What is it that makes your offer the best fit for customers? Now, this can be your quality. Do you cater for a very specialized audience? It can be how you deliver your sessions if you're a facilitator. Do you focus on very holistic needs? Is it a deep understanding of a particular industry or community you serve? These are all things you can think of what makes your business quite specific and stand out from other peers and competitors. Make sure your USP is short, concise, and understandable. Think of it as your elevator pitch. If you can't succinctly describe your own business, then other people are going to struggle to understand what it is you do. So once you've decided on your USP, practice saying it out loud. Get comfortable saying it all the time. So whenever anyone asks what you do, you can just instantly say, oh, my business is this and we do this, and this is why we're great. If you're struggling to pin down what your USP is, do some research. Why not ask your peers, ask your colleagues or previous customers if they can summarize what they think your business is. Sometimes they might be able to give clarity if you're struggling, or sometimes they might be on completely the wrong end of a stick, but that in itself can be useful. If other people have a very different perception of your business, then that tells you, actually, what I'm giving off mixed signals here. How can I make it much more clear what it is actually that I'm wanting to offer? So I'm going to introduce a case study. So for each of these steps, I'm going to show through this case study how you might practically apply these steps. So I say so a lot. I'm becoming very aware of that during this webinar. Meet Tony. There she is. Tony runs a theatre and education company. However, there are a lot of theatre and education companies, so how does Tony stand out? She needs a USP. Tony's USP is that she specialises in adapting Greek theatre for primary school and secondary school ages, covering both history and drama syllabuses. And because her business is small and versatile, she can deliver performances and workshops in school settings, non-traditional venues, and also digitally. So what she's done there is she's taken quite a broad industry and she's really narrowed down what it is her business excels at. Step 2, who are your audiences? Now, this is quite often in marketing called segmentation. It's never a case of one size fits all in marketing. You need to find a way to break down who your audiences are. Marketing costs time and money, and you want it to be as efficient as possible. You don't want to waste money talking to the wrong people in the wrong way. You want to be talking to the right people who will be interested in what you're offering, and you want to talk them in the way that best suits them. So who are your existing customers, and what new customers do you want to attract? Valerie is really loves segmentation. We use it mainly via our booking data, but lots of third-party tools, which I'll come to shortly. And it's the absolute bedrock of how we have our marketing strategy, looking at what people's interests are, where you can upsell, how you can cross-promote, how you can predict people's behavior. All comes down to how we divide our audiences. And there are loads of different ways you can do that. So I've listed some of them here. You can divide your audience by demographics, such as age and gender. Location, are they local? Do they come from particular environments, rural versus urban, for example? Are they individual customers or are they other businesses? Frequency and recency, that is how much they engage with you and how recently they engage with you. Their interests, their behavior, and also similar audiences, or what are quite often called lookalike audiences. With your existing customers, see what information you can already find. That can be through booking data. Who's booked with you previously? It can be through surveys to previous bookers, or that you share through social media. It can be digital analytics using Google Analytics for websites, or most social media platforms have their own inbuilt form of analytics as well. And it can also, there is good value in anecdotal feedback and evidence. For example, if you know the majority of your customers are primary schools, you might not have hardcore data to say that, but you know that to be true. So use that experience you have of dealing with your customers directly. But also consider what new audiences do you want to target if you want to expand your business. So back to Tony, our friend. So Tony's had a look at who she works with, and she's defined 3 target audiences. She's defined her core audience, an audience with potential to improve, and a new audience she would like to grow. So her most successful audience is primary schools who are studying ancient Greece. She also gets a little bit of work from secondary school GCSE drama students. She could do better. That's definitely an area where she could really improve that audience. And finally, she's got this idea of families in rural areas. It's a new audience, but after some research from existing customers and online surveys, she thinks this might be a great opportunity to bring in an additional income stream. She's also realized that she can segment even further by existing customers, recommendations. So when a school has gone, oh, this other school might be interested in working with you, and also new audiences such as the families in rural areas. Just to flag up a few other tips and tools for segmenting audiences. One tip that quite a lot of organizations do is creating personas for each of your target audiences. This is really great for helping you step into their shoes and see things from their perspective. An example is Tony, our case study. So I've created Tony as an example of the audience I'm marketing to today, which are the freelancers and artists and small companies that work with curious minds. So I've created Tony as an example of the sort of person I want to speak to. Hopefully it's working. Also, there are some really amazing, if you want to delve a little bit deeper into audience segmentation, there's some amazing free tools out there. So I've flagged 2 of them here. One is Audience Finder, which is from the Audience Agency, and culture segments. Now this breaks down the entire population by how culturally engaged they are, along with a overlaid with other factors such as location, income, stage of life, and media consumption. And that can be a really useful way of looking at, particularly in certain areas or geographical locations, looking what the population around that is like. And they have really great free tips and tools on how to reach out to those audiences. Also, sneaky tip, the Arts Council uses Audience Finder and your audience spectrum. If you're ever doing a funding application, it will really help you in the audience development and marketing section to name drop those segments as the Audience Finder refers to them, particularly with areas of low cultural engagement. So that's my top funding tip for you today. Next step, what are your goals and are they realistic? So before you begin, you first need to know what it is you're trying to achieve. Give yourself clear goals and consider who your target audiences are. Use SMART objectives and be as clear and realistic as possible. For those of you who aren't aware of SMART, I put the breakdown here. Make sure your goals are specific. Make sure they're measurable. How do you know if you're achieving them if you can't tangibly work out what it is you're trying to achieve? Are they achievable? Be realistic. This is, again, making it realistic. If you're a one-person band, don't claim that you're going to have 100 mini businesses across the world within a year. It's never going to happen. Make sure it's relevant. Go back to your USP and your mission, and actually, is this a diversion from your main goal, or is it really core to helping you get to where you want to be? And finally, time frame. Put a time stamp on it so it doesn't become a never task. Let's look what Tony did. So Tony came up with 3 goals. The first one, I think she got spot on. To get bookings with 3 new secondary schools during the autumn term. So that's specific. She knows what she wants to achieve. It's measurable. Has she got those 3 new bookings? It's achievable. That doesn't feel over ambitious. It's relevant. She's a theatre and education company, and it's got a timescale during the autumn term. Her other goals, to gain 5-star national reviews. Although she's creating theatre, actually, are reviews that useful or relevant to her target audience? Probably not, especially if she's delivering in-school workshops, and also national reviews generally don't touch theatre and education, sadly. To successfully engage with secondary schools, well, it's a great aspiration, but what does that mean? You can't specify that or measure that. So those 2 are examples of where goals are not SMART. So step 4, this is probably the biggest step. What are your target audience's needs and how can you meet them? Now you've segmented and chosen your target audience, you need to try and understand them and their needs. How are those audiences different from each other, and what makes your most loyal audiences keep coming back? I'm just going to quickly say, when I say audiences, I don't mean physical theatre audiences. Audience is another way of describing customers, potential new customers, digital audiences. So it's very much a catch-all term. So please, when I talk about audiences, don't think I'm specifically referring to theatre. For this stage, think of it as standing in your audience's shoes and seeing things from their perspective. This will help you understand what it is they're looking for and what you can offer them. A marketer's job is to speak to customers in language that is relevant to them, and one size really doesn't fit all. So go through each of your target audiences and think about what their needs are. And the great way to do this is using what is called the marketing mix, also known as the 4 Ps or the 4 Cs, depending if you're looking from a business perspective or a customer's perspective. This process will help you identify what it is they need and what are the relevant benefits that you can offer. So the first P or C is product, or from a customer perspective, choice. What are your customer needs and how can you meet them? Second point is price or cost. what does it cost your customer? And this is the overall experience, not just the cost of purchasing a workshop or a ticket or a consultation, but it's the overall cost. Is there other costs such as travel, parking, time out of a working day? Try and consider the whole thing. Place or convenience, which I think is possibly it's the word that I think I'm least happy with out of these four, because I think you also need to consider physical place, digital place, but also time. How easy to access is your product? What barriers are there physically to stop people engaging with you? And then finally, promotion or communication. How do you communicate with your customer? There are loads of great free online resources talking about the marketing mix at various different skill levels. So I appreciate I've whizzed through that, but it's a really useful way of thinking from the need perspective of your audience. Let's see how Tony did it. So I've got 3 case studies for each of Tony's audiences. I'm only going to go through the first one in detail because I'm wary of time, but all 3 are on this presentation so you can revisit them. Primary school studying ancient Greece. So, product. Teachers are looking for engaging ways to teach pupils about ancient Greece, but it can be logistically difficult to take year groups out of school. Therefore, Tony can offer in-school performance and workshop package. That is the need and how Tony has met it. Price. School budgets are increasingly tight, so they're looking for value for money. The combo package of Performance Plus workshop fulfills 2 objectives, plus because it's in school, there are no additional costs such as bus hire, parking, or additional staff and chaperone time. So that's another great benefit that Tony can offer. Place, as I said before, it's logistically difficult to take children out of school and hard to justify losing a full school day. So Tony's in-school package requires minimal organisation from the teacher and is quite constrained within a time period. So there's less of the school day is given over to Tony's workshop. Promotion. Teachers are often overworked and time poor. They don't really have time to browse and research what activities to bring in. So they're looking for guaranteed quality and ease of booking. Recommendation is also really important, as well as directly reaching out to teachers in a clear, concise way. So that's just a quick example there of how Tony has used those 4 Ps to consider what her customer needs. As I said, I've also done this for secondary schools and for Tony's new audience of family in rural areas, which I would recommend when you get this presentation, going back and having a look to help you work out how best to use those 4 Ps to look at your customers and audience's needs. Step 5, I'm out of breath. Step 5, what tools should you be using to reach your target audience? So first I'm going to say, get your base right. By your base, this is your central point of where people can find out about your business. Most often, this has been websites, but increasingly it's taking the form of social media profiles on Facebook or LinkedIn or Google business listings. So work out what's right for your size of organization or your own business. And then look at your base from a customer perspective. How easy is it to find what you need? And does it work on mobile? Think how many times when you're looking for something, are you using your mobile or are you sitting down at a computer? Once you look at your base, can you clearly find what your business offers and your USP? Can you find where you're based or what area do you cover as a business? How do people get in touch? And what content is there? And we'll revisit what I mean by content later. Plug slacks on. I'm talking a lot here about websites and digital marketing. To understand the tips and basics of setting up your website, doing stuff like optimizing search engines, digital advertising, social media analytics, I would really, really strongly recommend doing the free Google Digital Garage Fundamentals of Digital Marketing course. I did it for laughs a couple of months ago because I was on furlough, and even though I've been working in this area a long time, I found it really useful. You get a certificate from it. It covers all the basics of digital marketing, everything from making sure your website works best for you, to how to use social media advertising, what search engine optimization means, and how to use other digital marketing platforms. Overall, the course takes about 40 hours, but it's in really manageable bite-sized chunks, and there's a simple test after each module. And it's free, and you get a certificate, and who doesn't love a certificate? So that's plug over. So what tools should you use? There are a huge amount of different marketing tools you could use. I've just dumped a load here on the screen. So you've got everything there from print distribution to press and PR, direct marketing, make sure you're GDPR compliant. I haven't got enough time to go to GDPR now, but essentially it's data protection. Outdoor advertising, social media ads, networking, influencers, business listings, your own website. It can feel a bit overwhelming. So how do you even know where to begin? So I'm going to use Tony again. This is a really useful tool that I use all the time, and I've called it, I don't know if it's actually called this, the comms audience matrix. So it's a table in which you have your target audience along the top here, primary schools, secondary schools, rural families, and then you have your different marketing activities down the side. And essentially you question how useful is each activity going to be for each target audience. So you know what to spend to reach which audience. So for Tony, you've got her primary schools, her secondary schools, her rural families. Facebook ads, probably not great. Hopefully teachers aren't on Facebook at school and are probably less likely after really long working days to be actively working from home. I know that's not true. I know all teachers work very hard at home, but in an ideal world, they're not going to be engaging with Facebook in their working time. Whereas rural families, probably it's much more about their personal experience. So Facebook is a great way to engage with them. Direct mail to past bookers. So as we've already established, Tony has already had quite a few bookings with primary schools and secondary schools. So that's a really great way to get people to rebook for the following year to engage past customers. Rural families is a new audience for Tony, so it's not really good. That's not really an activity she can look at. A profile raising event, so getting involved in a local venue open day. It's a great way to meet all three if that's a possibility. Referral discounts. So if you're referred by an existing customer, do you get a discount off a workshop package? Well, that's a great way to broaden existing customer networks. And then family event listings, like Mumsnet or Go See This. That's a great way for engaging families. As well as audiences, you should also consider the resources. So ask yourself, how much time will it take to do that marketing activity? How much will it cost you? And do you need people in skills? Because sometimes you will need to get an external person on board. For example, I can't design. I have no skills in Photoshop. It's painful. I use Microsoft Paint. So if I'm ever designing a flyer, I have to use a designer, either in-house at Valari or go externally and hire someone. Be versatile. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. Make sure you're able to change tactics if things don't go to plan. In terms of looking at your overall business, there's no magical answers to how much you should spend on marketing. But personally, I go by the 10% guideline. That is 10% of business resources and 10% of your budget dedicate to marketing. Marketing can be something, especially I've noticed with new theatre companies and live performance, marketing can be something that's sacrificed really early on. And essentially that's doing you no favors because you are limiting your chances to make sure your art reaches as many people as possible. So that would be my personal recommendation, would be 10% of your budget on marketing. Step 6, how can you attract target audience's attention? So 1 is make your marketing messages relevant to your target audience. Highlight the benefits relevant to them. Don't waste time and money on pushing the wrong message to the wrong audience. And the other great way is what I mentioned earlier, which is content marketing. So content marketing is digital material designed to generate interest and engage audiences. This isn't necessarily about a hard sell, but it's helping people become familiar with your business and what your values are by offering engaging content that they generally find interesting and that they want to watch. If you just keep posting, buy my workshop, buy my workshop, buy my workshop, you're not going to do yourself any favors. Whereas content marketing is a really great way of grabbing someone's attention. So put some examples there: photos, testimonials, video tutorials, video footage and trailers, video interviews, blogs, statistics and infographics, creative artwork and illustration. And then quickly, just because I'm aware there's a lot of video there, that doesn't need to be high-tech, hiring a film company. You can do it so easily with a tablet and a mobile phone. So Tony, case study, she's chosen 4 pieces of content marketing. She's got animated testimonials from schools she's worked with before, photos and video footage with GDPR permission of Tony's company delivering workshops with children, a sample from Tony's secondary school digital resource pack, giving a flavour of what teachers can expect, and an A to Z blog of fun facts about Greek theatre. These are all things designed to be interesting. Step 7, what is your time frame? So there is no definite time scale you should stick to. All I would say is consider your audience and don't leave it to the last minute. Your marketing plan should always be central to your business plan and not an add-on that comes later on. Different audiences have different needs and timescales. Some audiences will need loads of advanced planning, and others might be last minute and spontaneous decision makers. Also, different activity requires different time spans. For example, a Facebook ad you can quickly set up if you've got the content ready, whereas print takes you've got to get it designed, you've got to have it printed, and then really for print to be effective, it needs to be out there more than 2 weeks in advance. One thing to really bear in mind are the 4 different stages of marketing, which I found out, I only realized whilst doing this presentation spells out AIDA, which is nice. So you've got awareness, that is, how do you get people to notice you in the first place? Information, tell them the information they need to know. Desire, make them feel like they want what you're offering. And then finally, action, that is them successfully engaging with you, booking with you, sending in an inquiry. Don't be tempted to try and shortcut to the 4th stage, especially if you're offering something new. People need time to understand and recognize what you're offering before they're going to be ready to book. People's time and money is precious, so you really need to make a case. I always think of it almost like providing evidence in a court case. You've got to convince them of your offer. And finally, just quickly to say, if you're promoting an event, I would say start promoting the event minimum 8 weeks in advance, which very rarely happens, sadly. Quickly go back to Tony. So case study, primary and secondary schools often plan a term out and require a lot of the steps of process in terms of logistics and financial processes. So Tony should start marketing to these audiences several months in advance to build trust and help them plan their upcoming term. Whereas half-term rural families are more likely to leave things until the half-term to decide what to do. Well, suddenly they've got a week with the kids. What are we going to do with them? So therefore, that marketing activity should be short and really focused on direct sales. Step 8, the final step. Is it working? So this is all about going back to your SMART goals. Are you meeting them? What other tools do you measure? Sorry, skip the step there. Go back to your SMART goals. Are you meeting them? If your SMART goals are measurable, then you should be able to see if you're on track. Look at the data. And when you're looking at the data, ask why. For example, why did no one book for my flyers? Why did primary schools book for the in-school? And why did secondary schools book for the venue performances? It's all about asking the right questions. Data, and by data I mean the information you have on your customers. It exists without value on its own. You've got to ask the right questions to get what you need from it. So I would, in terms of what data you can use, I would strongly recommend looking at what booking data do you have? What website and social media analytics do you have? Can you do surveys? Can you do some audience research with existing and new customers? And then finally, if you really want to make sure you're getting bang for your buck, measure ROI. So ROI means return on investment. And essentially that means how effective is your marketing activity. And that's the simple formula to work that out. And that is just the income minus the cost of activity, and then divide that figure by the cost of the activity again. So say you took £500 in school bookings, but it cost you 50 quid to do the marketing activity. You would minus the 50 quid from the £500, 450, and divide that by the cost of activity to get your ROI. And then for each marketing activity, you can do that to work out what's working really well for you and what isn't. And then sometimes things just don't go to plan, and that's okay. That's not the end of the world. But to help prepare for that, always have a contingency plan and have a contingency budget, and regularly review and assess your marketing activity so you can be responsive. If something's working really well, why not invest more in that activity? And if something just isn't working, cut your losses, try something else. So final case study from the lovely Tony. Tony has tried 2 Facebook ads of digital content. She found out her testimonials animation got very few responses, whereas her A to Z Greek theatre blog got a lot of shares, but no visits to the rest of her site. So with that information, Tony has halted the spend on the testimonials Facebook ads and instead put that cost into boosting her blog post. But before she did that, she updated to have a clearer call to action on the blog to get people to visit her website to find out more. Another example of Tony reviewing is that she's had few new school bookings using her referral discount, so she'll continue to offer it, but she'll also offer a discount to any schools that pass on successful recommendations to encourage that word of mouth, which is so important for schools. So that felt like a sprint, but just to recap, the 8 steps. What's your unique selling point? What makes your business unique? Who are your target audiences? And that is segmentation. Break it down. The more you break it down, the more targeted you can be. What are your goals, and make them smart. Make sure they're realistic. What are your target audience's needs, and how can you meet them? Those are the 4 Ps of product, price, place, and promotion. What tools can you use to reach your target audience? So if you remember, that's the matrix. Put your target audience along the top and the activities, potential activities down the side to work out what are the best tools you can use to reach those audiences. How can you attract your target audience's attention? What's going to engage them? What's your time frame? How much time do you need to deliver that activity? Think of your audience and also think of how much time that activity is going to ask of you. And then finally, is it working? Take time to review and evaluate. What can you be doing now whilst we're all in this weird lockdown limbo? Try creating a marketing strategy using these steps. Invest in setting up and updating your base, your website, your social media. Make sure it's as useful as possible to any customers. Develop skills. Do the Google Digital Marketing course. Plus there's loads of other courses out there. Use this time to really upskill yourself to be as resilient as possible. And then finally, use this time to build up your networks and relationships, especially warm and dormant ones, because when we come out the other side of this, we're going to be really relying on each other to help us through the next uncertain few years. I've almost run out of voice, but that is my presentation in a nutshell. So thank you. And there's a picture of me in an aardvark.
That's absolutely brilliant. Thank you so much, Dan. And you get a huge amount of extra points for having a picture of you with an aardvark at the end. Thank you so much.
I'm very much looking forward to going to Chester Zoo again.
which hopefully won't be too far away, right? You can do that now. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you kind of going through those steps in a way that are very systematic. Actually, it kind of, I think marketing can feel amorphous, and I think we can sometimes feel like we're doing a bit of it here and there, but actually being deliberate and systematic feels like a really useful thing. I think especially now when, you know, people are aware that they're going to kind of find tricky times in terms of cutting through the noise to talk to schools. And actually there's one question in the chat about marketing to theatres. So if someone were to trying to market to an organisation like the Lowry, what would kind of be the best ways and platforms that they would do? Have you got any advice for that?
Have a little bit of context of what it is they're selling, or what is they're promoting.
Yeah, so that question came from Austin Hewitt. So Austin, if you want to put something else in the chat, he was saying, what's the best platform or way of working with theatre or venue partners to get their marketing out there? Unless I've misunderstood that.
Instead, to save typing it.
Okay.
I run a small theatre company and engaging with different organisations. It's rural touring as well as theatre venues. We had everything postponed to the autumn, and I was preparing to create prints, which I think we'll still do. Just trying to figure out the best way of evolving into something more digital.
Okay, so is this when you talk about promoting to theatres, do you mean in terms of getting them to programme your work, or they've already programmed your work? It's how do you work with their marketing teams?
The second one, working with the marketing teams, probably more relevant at this point.
I would honestly say try and get a phone call or a chat booked in with their marketing person and find out what they know about their audience, because different theatres have wildly different audiences. Green Carnation toured a mid-scale production earlier this year, and what we found across our 5 venues is the audiences could not be more different between venues. So we really had to rely on each venue knowing its audiences, knowing what works best for them, and being able to be responsive to that. Again, it's never a one-size-fits-all audience, so I'd say slightly bow down to what they know about their own audiences. Does that help?
Absolutely. Are there any particular platform types that you'd recommend for that, or is it just kind of suck it and see and find out what they want?
I'd say a lot of digital advertising is definitely becoming more and more a huge part of any marketing campaign. And what's great about digital marketing is you can be so targeted with it. And that can, when you're talking to venues about what their audience looks like, that can be so helpful. So to use Green Carnation as an example, when we performed in Manchester, we knew there was a very large captive LGBT audience, and it was an LGBTQ specific play. So we really targeted that message, and that worked really well for us. Whereas performing at Hull Truck, their main audience is a much more drama focused audience. So we had to change our messaging to target people who really like plays and BBC dramas, and we found that was the best route for that venue. So I'd say digital allows you to be much more targeted.
Brilliant, thank you.
That's really helpful. Thanks, Dana. It's a great example, I think, to illustrate that. I'm aware that we're nudging up to 3, but there's also one other great question. If you don't mind just quickly giving us whatever the first thing comes into your mind, that would be great, which is if you've got any advice on good, accessible or inclusive communication to use in marketing. And obviously people are very keen to reach wider audiences in terms of accessibility. So if you've got any top tips on that, that would be amazing.
With digital marketing, there are loads of really great online resources and toolkits that help guide you to be as accessible as possible. Also look on organisations such as the Arts Marketing Association, but there's very simple tops and tips that can be quite cheaply done, it can be quite time intensive. But for example, anytime you use an image on your website or in a newsletter, make sure it's captioned. So websites can interpret that as to text for if they've got a browse aloud function. Make sure videos are captioned. Make sure the font is as accessible as possible, so avoid italics on screens. Make sure the contrast is great. Saying that, I'm just looking at my presentation and going, oh, white text and light and the light peach and blue background, that's not very accessible, so apologies for that. There are loads of great toolkits and blogs on how to make your marketing as accessible as possible in terms of access needs. Does that help? That's not an area of specialism. We've got someone dedicated to that, Valerie, who's fantastic at sort of make sure we're doing the best job we can.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much, Dan. That's really helpful. We committed to finish on time, so we're almost there. So I'm going to wrap it up now. I think you'll see from the chat comments yourself when you get a chance to look at them, Dan, that people are really appreciative. Thank you so much in terms of making something that feels quite complicated feel quite systematic. I think the thing that's going to stick with me is when you said really early on, actually, that what you're excited about might not necessarily be the thing that your audience is excited about. That was a bit of a mic drop moment for me, actually, to go, oh yeah.
It's so hard. If you've created something that's an absolute passion project, it can be really hard to take that step back and realize, because you've got this really in-depth knowledge and passion for this subject, doesn't mean your audiences will. Your audiences might be looking for a new experience. It's finding out what they're looking for. I just wanted to, because we're running out of time, just quickly say that I am very aware that that was a whistle-stop tour of what marketing is. Do make contact with me via my email or social media if you have any further questions. I'll do my best to get back to you, and hopefully actually having a presentation will help refresh everything that you've touched upon today.
That's a generous offer to let people get in contact with you. Thank you so much. The other thing that will happen next is Hannah will send out an evaluation in the next few days, so please do complete that, and we really genuinely want to know what you think, because we really want to try to bring the things that you need at the moment, because it's going to be, you know, a tough time for us all coming out of the current situation. So please keep talking to us, keep telling us what you need. As I said before, we're taking our role as a sector support organisation really seriously, so you know, please keep talking to us about that. This will go online once the webinar are completed and we've had time to kind of get them ready to go online. So if you want to watch again, if there are things that you missed, you'll be able to do that, and all the other webinars, if there are other ones you wanted to get to and couldn't, you'll be able to see them through our website as soon as we can make that happen. Other than that, I think the last thing that remains is just to say thank you so much to Dan and to everyone else for being here. I hugely appreciate it. I'm also aware that it's Friday and it's late on, so have fabulous weekends, people. Just very lastly, if you've got into this Zoom room and you don't know how to get out, it's the bottom right hand corner. So thank you so much for being here. I totally agree with you, Austin, gin o'clock for sure. So yeah, thanks very much, and have great weekends.